place where problems are small. Nowhere else you will see every race living in harmony. African together, right here.
Welcome back. Race relations remain a sensitive and important issue in Trinidad and Tobago, shaping public discourse, national identity, and social cohesion. Joining us this morning is criminologist, social researcher, author, and analyst Darius Figueroa, to examine the current state of race relations and the way forward. Good morning to you, Mr. Figueroa, and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you. It's been a while since we have had you on this program, so we are really grateful to have you today. We are here to talk about crime, but with a slant on race. You have done quite a lot of research on crime in Trinidad and Tobago and the sociology, if I can call it that, of crime. I want to ask you, does crime have an ethnic composition in Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, in keeping with the reality of the social order of Trinidad and Tobago, where everything has a race dimension to it, there is a topography of criminal activity in Trinidad and Tobago and race. Using TTPS data, we find that the African race is overrepresented as perpetrators, but when we look at who are they victimizing, is that they are victimizing their own race. So there is this dangerous discourse of the African as a criminogenic race who are victimizing Indians. The statistics show that Africans continue to victimize members of their own race.
Just to be clear, when you talk about victimization here, you're talking about criminals of an African hue perpetuating crime against Africans, Afro-Trinidad. That's what you're talking about.
The principal victim are members of their own race.
Right, right.
So those who insist that the African is a criminal threat to their race, that is a false, mythic discourse.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm glad that you talked at the beginning of the introduction, you talked about the topography and the race as it relates to crime. So let me ask you, the East-West corridor, race, Afro-Trinidadians involved in crimes predominantly, are those two factors synonymous? East-West corridor, East-West corridor.
You have hit the nail on the head. And the reason why we find, for example, that the beaten heart of gangland was formed in the East-West corridor is that we must understand that criminality in Trinidad and Tobago is a product of the illicit trades. So when the Colombian Dons brought their illicit business model to Trinidad and Tobago in the 1970s, it has gone through now 4 stages of evolution, changing the very nature of our culture in the East-West corridor, our values, our morals. They came in with their illicit business model and they set it up in the marginalized communities of the East-West corridor, predominantly African with mixed races. And this illicit business model was allowed to thrive because of the failure of the politicians and the non-elected politicians who run the TTPS. It went through 4 stages of evolution unchecked until it reached its 3rd stage where it evolved gangland. So gangland, the East-West Corridor, is a direct product of our successive government's failure to address transnational organized crime, taking control of these communities in the East-West Corridor. So our solution to Trinidad and Tobago is to blame the victim. We have blamed the victim, and now we have gone further and we are insisting that the victim is a criminogenic race, a race that has a genetic propensity for criminality.
It's interesting that it's interesting that you will frame it that way. So you're saying that, again, just to recap very quickly, that the Afro-Trinidadians have a propensity, more of a propensity for crime. But you're saying that they're perpetuating that crime against their own kind. But you're also now saying that the Africans, the criminal persons within the African community who are committing crimes and so on, they are victims themselves because they have been taken advantage of by, let me introduce a word here, by the big fish?
They are simply two realities we must understand.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at. What are the realities?
This reality we face in Trinidad and Tobago is the product of our failure to assault transnational organized crime head-on in Trinidad and Tobago.
So who are the people involved in from your data, from your research, who are the people that are predominantly involved in transnational crime?
The first transnational organized crime business model to invade our marginal spaces of the East-West Corridor were the Colombian Dons. And they have been here since the late 60s. And they are still here.
Mm-hmm.
So what is happening to us is that as this Western Hemisphere illicit trades evolve, so it evolves in Trinidad. So the model we have, we no longer have one transnational organized crime model that is dominant. We now have two. So it's the Colombian Dons and Pax Mexicana.
Right. Mr. Figueroa, you are known for being very frank. I've followed you over the years, and I know you don't shy away from having frank conversations. I have to confess to you and admit to you that one of the reasons that I thought about this particular segment of the program, it was spurred by the whole issue of this 1%. And when we talk about the 1%, particularly here in Trinidad and Tobago, I mean, there's a kind of a disdain that is attached to it. And of course, the rhetoric, perhaps maybe, the languaging coming out from government would suggest, or seem to suggest, or in the minds of the people that, what so-called 1% are involved in some kind of criminal behavior. But so what we've talked about. If I were to ask you, we have Trinidad and Tobago is a cosmopolitan country, as you know, made up of many different races. There are two major races: the East Indians and the Afro-Trinidadians, and so on, the Africans. But we also have the Syrian and Lebanese, which make up a very small portion of our society. We also have the Chinese and other smaller groups. If you were to dissect the composition and perhaps match, if that is possible, if you have done that research, are certain groups more inclined to certain kinds of crime? And what are those groups and what are those crimes?
Well, what we must understand is that all means by which you generate wealth in Trinidad and Tobago, whether legal or illegal, licit or illicit, has a race order of power. So let's take what happened when the Colombians Don came.
Right.
When the Colombians Don came, they didn't come personally and set up their business model. They worked through intermediaries. But there was a hierarchy of race established. So in communities dominated by Africans, You had no African crime families who were the shot callers and the players. It was non-Africans who were working for the Colombians. The primary race who were working for the Colombians, who were in charge of the business model in the African-dominated corridor, were Indian families. And then other minority race groups joined the Colombian business model, whilst the Africans were relegated to be hewers of wood and drawers of water. So Africans were never given the opportunity in the race hierarchy established in Trinidad and Tobago for them to become players. Just as though there are no African families or an African individual in the oligarchy of Trinidad and Tobago today.
Mm-hmm. So then you'll be very much in agreement. This government has adopted a no-nonsense approach as it relates to crime. You've heard the Prime Minister, she has been talking very strongly about it. Narco-terrorism, she's talked about the businesses that support crime. In fact, in today's Express newspaper, on one of the pages, she's quoted as talking about the reduction, the number of persons who are unemployed, and attributing that to the closure of businesses that were thriving by ill-gotten gains. Would you be in what are your thoughts on government vocally talking about going after the big fishes, my term, the big fishes?
Let me answer you with a statement. The last government of Trinidad and Tobago we had, who gave to the public of Trinidad and Tobago a realistic assessment of the game in Trinidad and Tobago, of the illicit trades, was that of Mr. Patrick Manning, 2007 to 2010.
All right, Mr. Figueroa. All right. When you finish with this, we'll take a break. So just finish your point.
Yeah. Since then, since Mr. Manning's last government, not a single government that followed has to date given a realistic, real assessment of criminality in Trinidad and Tobago.
Mm-hmm. All right, we'll explore that.
This assessment is taken straight out of Trump's playbook, and Trump's playbook on the drug trade is pure fantasy land.
All right, so when we come back, we'll talk more, get to your opinion on government's strategy, crime-fighting strategy, and how that is effective or non-effective based on your opinion. We'll take a break. We're chatting with Darius Figueroa. Stay with us. We will be right back. Welcome back. We will return to our conversation in a short while with Darius Figueroa, who is a criminologist, a social researcher, an author and analyst, as we discuss the issue of the ethnic composition of crime and we try to unpack that. Before the break, I referenced a story in today's Express newspaper about the Prime Minister talking about the job losses, some 6,000 job losses that have been stated in the CSO report in the first quarter of 2026. And it is a story by Anna Ramdas and Kim Budaram. And in the story it says the Prime Minister commented on the almost 6,000 job losses recorded by the Central Statistical Office in the first quarter of 2021. This is a quote, "The job losses you are seeing is is as a result of the removal of state-funded ghost programs that were filled with criminality, non-renewal of contracts, and a decrease in illegal drugs entering the country because of cooperation with the American government and better management of our national security apparatus, unquote. She continued, quote again, many drug trafficking business fronts have closed and others have been forced to downscale. The drug traffickers and local drug mafia have a heavy influence in the country's business sector, which is now being curtailed. So this is a good jump off to continue our conversation with Mr. Figuera, who is back with us. Good morning to you again and welcome back, Mr. Figuera. Now, you have been following what I was reading. I was reading this excerpts from an Anna Ramdas and Kim Budram story in the Express newspaper where the Prime Minister is talking about the job losses, and she's attributing that to the closure of many businesses because government is cracking down on illegal, on the drug trade. So I noticed that you have talked about the businesses or some businesses or business-led criminal activities in Trinidad and Tobago. You're staying clear from the 1%. Are those two separate?
What we have to understand is that when you are operating from a premise of what the illicit drug trade is, that is wrong. All you can generate is political spin. So let me give you the reality of the cocaine trade to America today. The cocaine market in America has collapsed. There is widespread dislocation in the drug trafficking pipeline that existed between Trinidad and Tobago and the eastern seaboard of America, especially New York City. In Trinidad and Tobago today, there is widespread dislocation. People hungry because the volume of cocaine that would go into America has been drastically reduced because methamphetamine and to a lesser extent fentanyl has destroyed the cocaine market. And the lesson for Trinidad and Tobago is only a matter of time before methamphetamine runs through Trinidad and Tobago like bushwhacks.
So this disruption in the cocaine industry is not as a result of any efforts on the part of, I'm asking you, by the way, on the efforts of the parts of government in fighting drug trafficking?
The American cocaine market collapsed long before Trump came to power in his first term. It collapsed long before the present government came in. The dislocation in Trinidad and Tobago's cocaine trafficking business was apparent for years. All the cocaine now that is transiting Latin America is going to Europe. And Trinidad and Tobago is not organically important to the European supply side of the market. So Trinidad now is in a drug trafficking depression. Who were present in Trinidad, using Trinidad as a pipeline, have now gone on to other pursuits, and that is causing extreme dislocation. And that is one of the causal factors for this crab in the barrel syndrome that you are seeing now appearing amongst the business community in Trinidad and Tobago, where they are using race and their race and the race of the government, hoping to get special favors to enhance their wealth generation efforts. Because what has happened, even if you were not using Trinidad and Tobago as a pipeline to New York City, your market has collapsed in America. And if you are not getting into Europe, your days as a Caribbean drug trafficker are numbered.
So in a sense, but that's a good thing then. So whether it was actively pursued by this government or any governments in the past, the fact that the cocaine industry, according to you, is being disrupted and frittered away, then that's a good thing.
Yes, but then you have synthetic drugs replacing it.
Right. Do we have that problem here in Trinidad and Tobago?
It's not a problem yet because the size of the market is small, but it is totally available in Trinidad and Tobago for sale.
All right.
All Trinidad and Tobago, they are available.
All right. So we just have a minute or so or two again. If the drug trade is being disrupted, and you said it's only a matter of time before Trinidad and Tobago gets into the synthetic market of drugs and so on. What is fueling crime at this stage? Because you framed it that the business model of crime, fueling the Afro-Trinidadians, Trinbagonians into crime. Drugs, I imagine, perhaps maybe was one of the main markets, but you're saying drugs is no longer a market. So what is it? What is fuel?
When your living is up for grabs and you are in the game, and you resort to all sorts of violent acts by which to live, they are hungry and they are armed because of the failure of the national security apparatus to assure public safety. Not because that they are inherently and genetically evil. So they are now looking for a living. Have you noticed how the modus operandi of crime in Trinidad now is rapidly changing? Do you realize now that we are moving now to take cash in transit, to crack warehouses, etc., etc.? Because of the fact of the collapse of their cocaine business.
Mm-hmm. So Mr.
So they are going to go at people with wealth personally more and more.
Mm. Yeah, I know you were opposed to the ZOSOs, that is zones of special, what is it called? Zones of special operations.
Special operations.
Zones of special operations. But based on what you are saying, if it is that, again, I'm following from the argument that you've made, the cocaine industry is collapsing or has collapsed, that the Afro-Trinidadians who are mainly involved in violent crimes, they have to now find something else to do because they need to make a living. But would you not agree now, if that is the case, that perhaps maybe the ZOSOs might have been a good temporary fix until the root causes of crime? No, let me hear your opinion on that.
No, because what we as a people in Trinidad and Tobago must understand, as long as transnational organized crime continues to enjoy impunity in Trinidad and Tobago, it is going to find a means for the displaced to live their criminal lifestyle. No matter how you suppress it and try to suppress it with rolling states of emergencies and ZOSOs, it does not.
Right.
Because you are not going to the source of the cancer whilst the cancer is metastasizing.
Let's remind us of what that source is again, very quickly.
Transnational organized crime.
Right, and what other...
We now have two models in Trinidad.
Right, you remind us of that.
The Colombian Dons and Mexicana.
Right. So what other aspects of transnational crime existing if the drug trade has collapsed?
Human trafficking, trafficking in copper, trafficking in anything that has value and a market for it. They will move it.
And who are involved, based on your research, who are involved in human trafficking and so on?
The same race hierarchy that exists in the game is replicated as it spreads.
What race is that?
The same hierarchy with the Africans at the bottom.
Right.
Do you now understand that a major assault on this country now is on the IT system of this country? Cybersecurity is a major issue transnational organized crime is hammering our digital databases. That is 21st century crime.
All right. As a criminologist, Mr. Figuera, as we wind down this discussion, what would be your advice? You've talked in terms of solving the crime problem. You talk about attacking the transnational network, but how?
In order for us to attack successfully and limit the operation of transnational organized crime in Trinidad and Tobago, we must now start speaking about criminality in a manner that reflects its reality on the ground. You cannot continue to speak about the game that is not organic to the game. How we describe crime in Trinidad and Tobago is a joke. It is a joke.
Yeah.
Get real.
Yeah.
That is the message. Get real.
Get real. Get real.
Forget the politics.
Forget the politics. And that's a great way to end this segment, Mr. Darius Figuera. Thank you so much for taking time off from your busy schedule to be with us here on the morning edition to talk about race and crime, the ethnic composition of crime. Darius Figuera, criminologist, social researcher, author, analyst. Thank you once again. We are going to head to a break. When we come back, we will talk more about race and race relations and other issues. Stay with us.
That lights up a great country, baptized together.